We're going to turn it over to our panel discussion. We have some questions, but we also want to hear from the audience on, what challenges you're facing and what help you might get. But before we get into the discussion, I'm going to have each of them introduce themselves, starting with Charles here.
Yep, Charles Thomas. Can everybody hear me okay? Good to go. Owner-operator of Lace Management. At Lace, we live by what's in our name. The LACE stands for Living Above Common Expectations. We operate out of the Washington, D.C. metro area. Our focus is always on operational needs for big organizations or small organizations that either you have an existing program or you don't have a program at all. And we always want to be able to boost awareness to what we do and how we do it so, it could always carry on. I'm a contributing writer to facilitiesnet.com and also building Operating Management magazine, doing work with Trade Press Media Group to also bring awareness to the industry for anyone that wants to know about it. Happy to be here with you guys this morning. Thanks for coming.
Clarence?
All right, morning, everybody. So, morning. All right, we're going to pretend it's happy hour and not up early, put it that way. Clarence Carson, President and CEO of CCRS, which is Construction Consulting and Real Estate Services, based out of the exciting Chicago, Illinois. So I specialize in facilities operations consulting throughout the Midwest and also beyond that as well, primarily to schools, nonprofits, government entities, or people working with companies working with those entities as well, but also open to other places too. A contributing writer of Facilities.net, been in the industry for a very long time. I had a lot of prior lives, which helped me build, an experience around the built environment. Everything from being an internal auditor, which sounds terrible to some people, but being an internal auditor, being a global risk insurance consultant, and also being the chief facilities officer of Chicago Public Schools at another point in my life. So excited to be here, excited to contribute. You all are lucky because we're here to pour into you all as much information we can so you can take away something back to where you came from. Thank you.
And finally, John?
It's hard to follow that up. I appreciate the energy. We need it this morning, right? 8 o'clock is a tough session, so I appreciate y'all getting here. John Reimer, FM 360, do overall facility management consulting. I've been in the industry myself over 27 years, and I love facilities. As I said in Tuesday's session, I'm a big facility geek. I love, similar to what these guys are doing, just love partnering with other, practitioners of this industry to, keep raising that bar, right? There's so much more that we can continue to do within our own organizations to deliver more value, to get the resources we need to be able to do our jobs. That really is kind of why, I'm trying to do a lot of this, is help us get what we need to get the jobs done. Because we keep getting that whole do more with less. You don't do more with less, you do less with less. That's just how it works. But again, excited to be here and look forward to answering the questions that we have, but also hope you guys will pepper us with some more.
Yeah, we have some starter questions, but even during the discussion, if you want to piggyback on that or you have a question for further information, just feel free to raise your hand. And we want to keep this as loose, and it's really for you guys. So anytime you have a question, just stop the discussion. We'll go from there. So attendees, they're here at NFM&T. They're looking for information and products on the expo hall to improve their facilities. But facility managers already have too much on their plate. So how do you get back home and begin the process of implementing change and then manage change once it's begun?
Charles?
When I hear this question, I don't necessarily think of what happens when you get back to the office to try to implement things. I think about the pre-work that goes into it. To me, this type of process or planning doesn't start when you leave to get here. It doesn't happen when you just step foot at the show. To me, it happens before you leave, or when you actually make a decision to come to the show and have an actual plan of how you're going to execute, of getting what you need at the show. You have to me, being in the mindset of all my questions and concerns about X, Y, and Z can be answered at this show. and you should operate as such. There's so many times I've seen a lot of people come to the show and kind of just wing it, and also try to still have something in place to take back home and implement. And to me, that just doesn't, that's not really conducive. To me, like the beginning stages of the future implementation, excuse me, the future implementation starts way before you leave your building. From products you're going to see, sessions you're going to attend, people you're going to talk to, like you have to ask yourself, is this all conducive to what we are trying to do once we do get back? If you get intentional about your time at this show, to me it's a lot about just filling in the blanks once you get back, because you did the pre-work of what was necessary for you to do what you needed to do to get back. And to me, it's like it's not an end-all, be-all once you leave the show. We're all consultants sitting up here, and I know there's a lot of people that have helped me when I've left the show and still have more questions. Just because you left doesn't mean that the access to people on LinkedIn or emails that you've gotten and so on and so forth isn't accessible. So I always encourage people to hit me up at any point in time.
Clarence?
Yeah. So I wanted to revisit the question again. I want to make sure everyone heard it correctly. With so much on their plate, how many facility managers get back home and begin the process of implementing the changes, and then manage it once it begins, or it's begun? I want to first ask, how many of you all actually either were sponsored by your company or self-paid for? So let's go the self-paid. Self-paid chose to advocate for yourself to come. Okay, so most of you all, pretty much all of you all, chose or had your company fund you all come. You all worked hard to show the importance of your own personal training and then sought it out, either advocating for yourself to your managers or to your organizations or to whoever you had to say, put training in the budget, and not only put it in the budget, keep it in the budget, and then let me use that part of the budget to come here to advocate for myself, to learn and improve. Hopefully you all do the exact same thing for yourselves. Hopefully you do it for your teams as well, because not all training can come to you all. Sometimes you all have to spend that green to come to the training. So first, kudos to you all to coming out to making this part happen. That actually is a big deal. You all know. As facilities people, we all know most of the money does not come to us. Most of the money goes to the other, whatever the products or services that the organization we goes to work at, and then at some point, it goes to the facilities, the buildings, and definitely not always enough to training. So when it comes to coming to something like this, and then what the takeaways are, hopefully, one, you all took huge notes. Hopefully you all also invest in your teams, not just yourself, like I said, to also come to these trainings, and then use them to convince your leaders back home that this is important. That whatever you all are learning, I think next door, but you all are here, and you all can't leave now, is facilities in a crisis. Right, so it's pretty much every day is a crisis. How do we plan around that? So how do you take the knowledge from here back at home, and then push and implement those things and plan around it every day that you all can? So I guess that's the thing I wanted to talk about, just that part. When you hear me talk about a lot in this conversation, it's going to be people, process, and then product stuff. Right, but people and process more importantly. How do we make sure that the people have the tools they need to succeed, and then create the process to either be successful in their environments?
John?
So a follow-up question to kind of what Charles had asked. How many of you came with kind of like your hit list of like, hey, while I'm there, I'm going to go check out, I need to go look at this type of booths? Anybody come with a hit list? Okay, so that's good. Now, next question is, the items that you had on your hit list, how does that fit into your department's vision mission? So how many of you have actually put together a vision, mission, or even call it a vision statement, I don't care, for your facilities department of this is who we are, this is what we're trying to accomplish, right? Set that long-term goal. How many of you have done that? Nice, okay? Because that's where you have to start first, right? Start with the end in mind, and that's, I think answers this first key question is, if I'm gonna start implementing change, I gotta know where we're going, make sure my team knows where we're going, and then, build the plan, work the plan. And hopefully those items that were on your target list that when you came fit into that big picture vision so that you can keep driving and moving that forward. Because most of us know, even something as, I'll say as simple as deferred maintenance. It took a long time to dig yourself into that pit of deferred maintenance, right? You got a lot of assets that are beyond useful life. It's going to take a stretch of time to get out, but you won't get out of it unless you have a plan and you work the plan. And I think that's usually where we see the problem is that we're too busy firefighting and we don't think strategically, right? We're down in the, we don't see the forest for the trees, and I joke that the trees are on fire, so we're kind of lost in the smoke anyway. So how do we bring ourselves out of that, set that big picture, work the plan?
If I could, so I really, really like that. If most organizations have a mission statement, a vision or a mission statement, organizations do, but often departments don't. We just go to work, we do a thing, we meet up, we do that either hour or 2 long huddle with our teams, and then we break out and we have annual budget planning and that kind of thing. We don't really have a mission statement. I think I saw those. Some of you all do have a mission statement or a mission, if not a mission statement. And hopefully it is prominent. Hopefully it is a part of your team meetings, hopefully your annual meetings and so on. But can someone share? I mean, this is very much of an interactive class, so, sorry for you all. It's going to be, don't make me start walking around with the microphone, putting it in front of people. But essentially, does anyone have a mission statement or a vision? If it's short or a mission statement they are proud of, they worked on, they crafted, they got involvement from their teams or from executive leadership to buy into it as well, that they have memorized and they wear on their chest every day. Anyone got one? Come on, don't be shy. It's 8 o'clock.
We're learning from each other here.
Yeah. Come on, I know someone has one. There you go, all the way in the back. Okay.
It won't be because maintenance didn't do their job that we don't have school. That's like
Yep. So, yeah, so even that alone, that being like a check and balance statement, right? So just that alone is still important. That's when you're talking to leadership to be able to say it won't be because of us that we won't have school. I mean, I don't know if that'd be a vision or a mission, but it will be a check and balance statement of, this is where we stand. We stand here every day coming in and doing our duty, but you got to give us the money to do it. Anyone else have like either a vision or a mission statement as well?
The only thing I'll throw into that is I mentioned this in the general session on Tuesday. Don't go by maintenance. Change it. You do far more than just maintenance, right? So change that. If you change the name and change how they think about you, so they don't just see you as doing maintenance. Yeah. Other vision, mission statements or vision statements.
All right. Well, I'll say this then. If you don't have one that you're proud of, one that you have memorized, what are we doing? What is our North Star for our teams? It does not have to be 800 words. It could be 10 words, whatever that statement is. It's on your letterhead as your team. It's on your website for your department. This is what we do. So keep that in mind.
And like the benefit of that is everybody being on the same page throughout the team, whether you're the junior man or you're the senior person that's on the team. If everybody's on that same page, we can all go toward this common goal for our team, like we've been talking about, and also making that conducive to the organization. You want to go toward that being toward adding to the values of the values, and also just everything and what the organization is about.
So again, I'm just going to say it one more time. That there was any question, which I really enjoyed the question. Going back home and beginning the process of implementing changes, it starts with us first having a vision of what we want. So Google it, look it up, look at other people's as well, and look at what their vision statements are. And I assume you all are all doing that right now on your phones. But doing that and then crafting it and recrafting and getting back home and talking with your team and recrafting and your executive leadership to buy into it as well.
Yeah, and I think to that point, definitely don't do it in a bubble. Involve your team, because that's how you begin change management, is having your team participate in the, hey, what do we want to be about? How do we want people to see us, right? Especially when you've got a lot of them that are planning to retire. What legacy do you want to leave behind? Simple questions like that. It's a very fun conversation. You'll see. I usually just, get a dry erase board and let's just start popcorning ideas, tying back to the organization's vision mission, right? But you start popcorning ideas, and it's pretty amazing how quickly you can craft a vision or mission statement. Just again, those central marching orders. But I think what we're talking now kind of ties into the second question too, if you want to ask that one.
Yeah, and this kind of talks about what you spoke on Tuesday. Often facility managers, you guys are left out of the financial planning conversations and ongoing operational strategy discussions. So how can facility managers get a seat at that table and be part of the conversation from now on?
I honestly can't speak directly to this because of the fact that I've been very fortunate to be a part of organizations and work with clients that completely value facilities teams. But I will just say that, I think that became from the people that I've had to look up to, that their value as a person was always a thing, and that was always the thing for me as well. And that also just stemmed from us doing our jobs well and just doing them efficiently. And a lot of times, we got opportunities to be in a room, to get the seat at the table because we just did what we were supposed to do, and it was very much just recognized. And a lot of times, it's like, when you get the opportunity to be at that seat, you can't be afraid to, first off, to sit there, and definitely don't be afraid to even just speak up and speak your mind. Because I've seen it, I've been in those rooms where people will keep their mouth shut the entire time, won't say anything when they have something real to contribute to what this plan is, whether it's the plan is going in a negative way and we should do this, or if it's positive and they just want your feedback on whatever it may be that your team is going to contribute to. I remember myself I was a facilities administrator really early in my career, and I'm walking around doing my rounds, just doing my thing, getting everything squared away, and I get pulled into a room that I didn't think I was supposed to be in there. I literally asked, like, am I supposed to be here? And folks like, yeah, you're supposed to be in here. And it's because they just valued me, they valued my opinion, just off of the strength of me being squared away and doing my job. To me, it's I think it's going to vary from organization to organization, but if you do what you do and you do it well, you'll be a part of more conversations than you actually think. And kind of going back to it of what was said earlier, not just thinking of as maintenance or something, just in that, I guess, broad spectrum, is that we do a lot more. We're not just the tool belt guys walking around. Like, we contribute. We're not here to just maintain. We are also here to create. We're also here to really critical think about problems that go on. So yeah, do what you do and do it to your best of your ability, and have the vision going forward. I think and talk with the right people and not being afraid to talk. That will put you in the room, that puts you in the seat, and for you to make a little bit of noise for your own team.
Sure. Let me ask this question, and this does tie back to the vision mission a little bit here too. That's why I didn't want us to get too far ahead of our skis on that one. Do we have any folks in here that are like, sales, account execs, biz dev? Okay. So, because I know we as facility folks, we all love salespeople, right? But we are salespeople, and I think that is, we are actually always selling facilities, always. We've just done a really, really bad job at it. And part of that is, we talked about on Tuesday, we don't recognize the value that we provide to the organization. So that is a huge portion of it. But we start talking about that vision, mission of, yes, I need to craft that, and I need to craft it so that it isn't, of course, just about maintenance. It's about, I'm a business manager. This is a business department, because they're, again, managing the second largest asset and expense. And, as they said in the back for the schools, if they don't do their job, the schools can't do their job, right? So how do we tie back to that first asset and expense? You've got that portion of it. But then if you talk to any biz dev person, they're going to tell you, well, you've got to have a marketing plan. If I'm bringing something to marketplace, I got to figure out, okay, what is it I'm selling? How am I going to sell it? What are those touch points? Same thing. We have to do that in facilities, and that's where we even kind of said, put that in your letterhead with like your vision or mission, or even come up with a tagline for your facilities organization. You can extract something like that from vision mission statement, and then put it everywhere. You've got your CMMS, IWMS that's when somebody submits a service request, they get an automated email back saying, hey, we received your request, da-da-da-da-da. Boom, there's your tagline. I mean, every correspondence, you're always looking for ways to sell who you are, and you're highlighting the fact that you're business-minded, because that's going to be the part that's going to start gathering the executive's attention, that starts viewing you as a business partner because you think that way, so they will hopefully start inviting you to that table if they have not already done so. And then when you do get there, my only admonition to you is go in as a partner, as a solution provider. Do not look at that as the opportunities to start telling them all the things that they've done wrong, because I've seen that happen. I mean, you'll get one invite and that's it. You're not getting invited back. Okay, so use that as an opportunity to, again, highlight the value, sell yourself, and sell the department.
I will say to the team in the back there who had the, if you leave me out, basically don't worry, don't blame me if school doesn't open. I've been there. I've been on that side of it, and I haven't always been invited in the rooms. It doesn't matter if it was Chicago Public Schools when I was there, the chief facilities officer. Would you think, okay, you have 600 campuses, 1,300 buildings, all these custodial and employees and so on as well. You have to be interwoven into the fabric of how the district runs. No. Most of these roles and facilities, the leadership of those teams are not in, let's say on the corporate side or on the government side, are not in cabinet. They're not being pulled into the rooms typically, as they should be, on what makes a difference and how to make sure the facility stays. I mean, the reality that the facilities operation side of it, the asset management side of it is a huge expense every year. Just pulling, and the reality is they don't give enough nearly towards it. And we get it because it's a depreciating item and truly deteriorating and depreciating item that we have to think about and work on every day. How many of us have a light bulb out in their house and you just kind of walk by it? It just happens. Or that smoke detector that beeps. Hopefully none of us have that situation. But essentially, we have to, I use this word, constantly advocate for ourselves, but also be a collaborative partner to get in those rooms. And sometimes it's kind of like hearing by the door, right? It's kind of just like hearing where leadership is going, the direction, the issues that are arising, and saying, hey, we really could take part in that. We could really help out. Oh, the alarms in that building don't work properly. Oh, we could really make sure it's connected to the overall facility and have it where a dashboard reads it and is all connected and we understand when things are out. Oh, the rooms are too warm. Oh, we can definitely help out with that. That's definitely what we're here for. Because typically, I guess, facility side is usually a group of people that, we live in the dungeon. At least that's what they think we do. We live in the back mechanical room, that has no windows, of course, and that we contribute when there's an emergency. That we are the CO Team 6, fire drill team, and not someone who can be partnered into the clean echelons of the tower at times to give input, which is, it's sad. It's sad, and the reality is it costs us all a lot more stress, definitely, and also a lot more dollars when we come in afterwards. So collaborative partnership and then advocating. So they eventually will come. So our budgets do get cut. Usually organizations find money, right? Money comes up. It does. I know people, I work, again, a lot of my clients have been nonprofits, no profits, no money, no, stuff comes in, initially they say there's no money, but there's money eventually. Government and, other privatized clients as well. But the reality is money will come. Does it come to you? Are you a department that they see as a resource to add value, to add prestige, to add comfort, to add security, to add whatever to the organization? So you have to have a litany of ideas, not just that one idea, like I really want this one to happen. You have to hit them all different ways. Look at the news and be like, you know what? That thing happened in another district or that other building. We don't want that to happen here. And then create a whole case study of why you need it to happen and the budgeting around it and how it's impactful and the cost of not doing it, most importantly. If we don't do it, this could probably happen. If we don't have control over all our defibrillators of our entire organization, just to make sure they're all up and that they're all being maintenance. You heard about in the news that one person that they were at they were at a library or whatever it was, and the defibrillator wasn't there in that case. We don't want that lawsuit. And then that was an incubator for a whole other thought process, and then created a change. So you were seen as a change agent, not an adjutant, but a change agent necessary for risk management. So it's all about finding the angles for the organizations and then finding the ends in those conversations as well.
Well, and I wrote an article years ago called Make a Negative a Positive, because when things fail in facilities, we're pretty good at, like, we want to, like, put those underneath the rug, right? Sweep underneath the rug. Don't let anybody know. And it's like, no, I remember I had one of my buddies when I lived back in Idaho, is one of my customers as well. I came in to go visit him, and he's like sweating bullets sitting there on his computer. I'm like, what are you doing? Updating my resume? What's going on? And he goes, man, and basically his company was in discussions with another company to basically do a merger. So you had in the executive office, executive conference room, you had a whole lot of executives, so a whole lot of hot air, on a nice warm day, and the cooling tower had decided to blow out. So they basically were overheating in that space. So he's like, oh my goodness, I'm going to get fired, da-da-da-da. I'm like, you've been telling them for how many years that you need to replace that cooling tower, right? Because it's beyond its useful life. He's like, yeah, exactly. I said, no, you're going to remind them of this when you go to meet with them to put your capital budget forward this next year and say, hey, we don't want this to happen again. That was embarrassing for you, it was embarrassing for me. This is an impact. So I'm going to take that negative and make it a positive and say, help me to help you not let this happen again, right? So use those as opportunities for change.
A good phrase that came up a lot that I was able to be attached to, well, I was familiar with because the environment being in Chicago, was Rahm Emanuel saying this phrase over and over again. Of course, don't let a good crisis go to waste. And it doesn't have to be your crisis. It could be somebody else's crisis, and you're just kind of amplifying it that we weren't ready for. Yeah, hopefully it's not your crisis, right? But if it is, then hopefully you have like an I told you so moment. But otherwise, still being able to amplify that and bring that to people and saying, hey, we got to put money towards this. I've been telling you, this is what it costs, and have the entire package. Here's the vendors, the RFP, whatever you have to do, or internally, and then go get it, and hopefully they're able to fund it.
We had a question?
Yeah, I was just going to add to that. I mean, I think too, like, I work in a company. Every company has an intranet. And I can tell you, your corporate comms people are desperate for content for the intranet. We recently started interviewing our engineers who have like 20, 30 years of experience. What's the coolest thing you worked on? What's the thing? And what we found is these guys were desperate to get out and about. So we started taking our engineers to K through 12. And now they do, I think it's the bridge building out at Popsicles, right? And it's a huge competition in our county, and it's something that our guys look forward to every year. And it was a cheap, inexpensive way that we were able to tie into another department. The other thing I'll say is, I love a good salesperson because I can take advantage of them coming out and doing a training, bring your guy out. You talked about the defibrillators. I talked to the guy in the expo hall and was like, yeah, let's talk. He goes, I could probably save you 20%. I was like, that's awesome. But also, if we have a safety month, can I invite you out to one of our facilities and do a lunch and learn?
Smart.
Yeah.
Because if I can do a lunch and learn, I can also take some pictures, put it up, and be thank you, of such and such facilities department. And all it cost me was $200 for a lunch, and I probably could even get one of our leaders to pay for that. So I think we have to challenge that a little bit. And how do we take what we're already doing just a step further, just to say, hey, do people even know this is happening? And that way, when a crisis does happen, they're like, oh, well, I know, Steve over here is going to be all over it.
Yep.
And they have that faith in there, because I think that's something we've seen a lot of, and it's something that I give a lot of recognition to our leaders for saying, okay, how can we start fixing this?
No, it's a very good point because, and again, I'm not meaning this in a bad way, we're kind of viewed as glorified janitors.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say.
And that's, and again, that's not, custodial grounds, to me, those are key prominent services that we provide because that sets the tone, right? It says somebody hits, by the time they hit your parking lot, hit your curb, they're setting the tone. But when you start looking at, okay, well, what all does it take to run facilities and operations? They have no clue. So those are great opportunities. Include that in that marketing plan. Even something as simple as, so-and-so got their Pro FM, or, this technician got, let's say, building operator certified. It's like we're highlighting that there's other skill sets that we're needing. There's education that we're acquiring in different certs to basically strengthen our team, because it does take a wide variety of skill sets. All very passive selling that you're doing to help educate the customer that, look, we do more than just maintenance. We're not the Maytag man waiting for you to call. So no, good point.
And I think every school district, nonprofit, I mean, I've worked for a lot of them. PR, communications, and operations, and when I was doing PR for a company, I met every single facility person. Because when I brought a senator into one of our facilities, I was like, hey, we're coming in a week, and they're like all over it. And then I would go buy that guy lunch and was like, hey, tell your team thank you. So if you haven't reached out to your corporate comms, your PR, your public affairs, and I know every school district has, they all have them. You just need to figure out who's responsible for it and say, hey, I'd love to work with you when you do community events. I'd love to work with you when you bring people to the facility. Let me know, I'll make sure. We'll do an extra pass that day. It's a proactive way that costs you nothing, and then they go, oh wow, I do have a partner here, that's great to know.
I want to make sure you say, so, one,
An anomaly. No. You mostly are. You mostly are an anomaly. Most people in facilities, most people I've worked with are not salesmen and themselves and don't prefer to be. They're about the work. They come in and they dig into the muck. A lot of them are either people who are action oriented, right? So that you have like the DISC surveys. They are very more in the D area itself. Conscientiousness is there too, intuitiveness is there too, but very much in the D area. And that heightened level of advocacy, and a word that he used that typically is not in the manual for facilities, which is PR, right? Really being that advocate, for their department, really going out and selling outwardly to different departments, different leadership, and everything else as well. Something that most of us had not built enough of a muscle at, right? Because we just haven't. So I really appreciate you showing, you're highlighting the fact that you're taking the small steps, everything from putting in the newsletter, putting in the intranet as well for your organization, which is just highlighting what you all do every day. You could say we save this much money and energy. We partner with this organization. This school won an award, or this engineer, or this whoever won this thing, or not even won, attended this thing, and we invested this, and it worked out. Look at the outcome of it. Just show a picture of a clean, just shiny, bright school. It doesn't matter. The grass cut, people will love that too. Whatever it is, you want to put your story out there, and why not us? Well, why isn't it like you all, not like us? But it could be us. But why not, you all?
Right, and that even speaks back to just not being afraid to speak up. I know, like, I was trained just coming up by my superiors of, like, they always told me, go out, walk around, let people see exactly what you're doing, talk to them. If they ask you what project you're working on, let them know what's going on. It could be something with PR, like they can help you with. We're all here as a team, and going even back to the mission and also back to the values of the organization. We're in this thing together to move whatever this thing that we're trying to do forward. And that, kudos to you, man, just speaking up.
If you write something and you're not a good writer, we talked about in the AI session, but B, if you make friends with that PR person, you go, hey, I kind of wanted to write something, take a look at this for me, and we'll clean it up for you. Absolutely.
quick question, little sidebar here, because I'm struggling with this a little bit. I do the numbers, we're invited at the table, to maybe, dealing with the CEO of the hospital or whatever. It's truly about the numbers. Doesn't make sense. But eventually, there are cuts. We all know that. My question to you is, because I've taken over a new job recently, how far do you go back sharing those numbers? Because I've had different reactions with managers. Like, how far down do we share this information? Because I've had good and positive about trying to advertise, about going to my staff saying, here's where the numbers are, and then, boy, that blows up in my face when they go around facilities saying, oh my God, they won't pay for this. Just trying to get a handle on this, because in the hospital is a lot easier. Currently, the new facilities I'm running are not quite as easy. The managers seem to be way out in left field somewhere some days.
So a couple things. And it's interesting you say this with hospitals. I was just talking to a hospital recently. I was reading was they have like a community benefits report. And that community benefits report they put out highlights, all the medical contributions that the hospital has done to the neighborhood, to the community itself. It talked about how many clients served. It talked about the types of work it does. It talked about the fact that they are the primary hospital within a certain radius. But what they didn't talk about were things like how much energy it puts back into the grid, because they don't do any solar, they don't do any real energy efficiencies. It doesn't talk about how they are a community benefit, as in, rental space and anything inside the hospital as well, meeting space, they have to have that kind of thing too. They didn't talk about how clean the environment was and how it contributed to an ability to prevent disease transfer between patients. Just other things they didn't talk about that were contributory and led by the Facilities and Operations Department. The deferred maintenance they did in place, the new indoor air quality system they had in place as well, the fact that they were expanding, all these different things. They just didn't highlight it. And my comment to them was, why? Why are we not thinking about facilities as a benefit and not just a detractor and not just a loss of revenue for them? And that helped change their mindset about what they thought about their building. They just kind of walked in. They all had complaints about what they saw, right? The trash can overflowing at times inside the building, inside the cafeteria area or the food court area. The fact that some of the ceiling tiles are not as clean as they would like, but they weren't really thinking about it really being the facility side of it enough, being a real community benefit. They were using it more so like to dodge bullets than use the building itself to attract and amplify. So to get to your point about the numbers, how far do you go and what kind of real reality check you give? You give the real internally. Now, what are you putting on your TikToks and your Twitter posts? Probably not saying that we have this much deferred maintenance out there that's not being funded, and these many ADA non-compliance issues and this many fire alarm issues that are not compliant. Don't do that, of course. But internally, you are highlighting all the risks and all the pitfalls that are there. If we don't do this thing, this is what might happen. This is the cost, and this is the far-reachingness of it. This is how prevalent it is in all these spaces. This is where we have our filtration system is not as strong. This is where we have our rooftop units are this far aged, right? They're not going to want all the detail of it, but paint them the picture. And this is where we're going to be if we don't do this, and this is how much money we're going to spend. So when you like to spend this much on a new medical wing or the new bed or, brightening up the red carpet in front of the hospital as well, the ambulatory clinic, well, that's all great and all. But do you want headlines to say that we spread, some new virus inside of our space because we didn't have enough filtration? And then just reminding them of that.
Anything you want to say there, Charles?
Not just piggybacking off of that, just making it clear that we are here to serve the organization and making that clear to folks. And one of those best things is to be in the mindset of just, we're trying to make this thing thrive and putting all that information there. And I had a question, like, what industry did you say that it was, and who is it actually blowing up with?
No, so, part of my background, and usually we move the information down, and the managers knew, and we moved a lot of numbers, so they knew the real deal. My issue is, I now take over, I'm running like 17 clinics, but boy, the managers do not seem to get it. So I quit really giving them the numbers. I'm struggling with how much information they actually hand out, because they take whatever they get in terms of negatives. So I didn't know if you had any approaches to trying to educate your staff about some of this stuff. It's a challenge.
You think that like varies from organization to organization?
Let me ask this question. Is it more of the information you're passing along is that, hey, budgets are being cut, so
Budgets aren't being cut.
Okay.
There are decisions. Obviously, than they can afford. I put everything in. We're told to throw everything in the kitchen sink in there, and then we start to whittle from there. Well, this got pitched, that got pitched. So when you share that budget, what got through, what didn't, we run with that. I don't look back. The CEO says, this is where we're going. This is where we're at. We're going to defer the RTU till next year. We're going to defer this till next year. And then they seem to latch on to the negative stuff.
So that's why I love doing first is the laundry list approach, right? We develop our list each year, especially when we start talking about capital replacement items. Put that list together, and then we know that we basically take last year's list, blow the dust off of it, and say, okay, well, what didn't actually die on us that we replaced, and then what else needs to be added, and then we maybe adjust the priorities, and we go in with a laundry list of 20, 25 items at least, knowing that we're probably going to get the top handful funded. That's the wrong approach. And how many of y'all have had facility condition assessments done? Okay, so that's your first problem. You need to have a facility condition assessment performed that gives you a state of the state of here is the estimated replacement date, estimated replacement cost for each of my assets. Now, once you pay that money to get that report, please do not let it stay in that report. You need to use it, because what you're going to get out of that is your FCI, your facility condition index. And that's going to give you what is the health rating, if you will, of my facility. That's what you track and communicate to management, but even also to your team. Because what we in facilities have done a bad job of is like, hey, we go with our laundry list, and then we go with our budget, and they say, okay, well, we can only do X. All right, well, we don't tell them the cost of saying no. And so if they say, I need $2 million to basically maintain my facilities, and that's just in capital budget, I need $2 million to maintain my facility, and they say, well, we can only give you 1.5, well, my FCI, that facility condition index, is only going to get worse. So I have to show them that funding scenario analysis to let them know that, okay, I say I need this, you're giving me this is just to maintain. So if you're getting me here, well, we're going to see the degradation of our facilities. And what I like doing is saying, okay, we know that FCI of like, our average FCI, let's say, is 0.4. And that's actually pretty good. I mean, a lot of folks would would love to have a 0.4 on average, but but that's, you go by industry standards, they're going to say, well, no, they're all rated as poor if you're down at that 0.3 or worse. Let's say I got 0.4, but I need $2 million just to maintain 0.4. Well, I'm going to get 1.5. Well, that means that over the next 5 years, we're going to see these other buildings get to like 0.6, 0.7, and you already got a 0.7 right now. And you can say, yeah, we know that 0.7 building, Ugly Betty over here. Guess what? In a few years, these other buildings are going to be like Ugly Betty. And you get management to go, oh, we can't do that. Exactly. And you do the exact same thing with the operations budget. It costs money to run facilities. We all know that. So if they start wanting to cut your budget, you go into negotiation. Just like if you had a contractor, you have a contractor that you say, hey, I need to cut your contract. They're going to say, well, what services do you want to reduce? We do the same thing as facilities on the operation side, because for too long, we say we get our budgets cut carte blanche, and then we go into the back room and figure out how to make it work. All we're doing is kicking the can further down the road. And if you understand the time value of money, it's just going to be a much bigger, heavier can that we cannot continue to kick. So I think having management understand what didn't get funded, I'm going to communicate that to them, but I want them to say, okay, I'll go the Jerry Maguire approach. Help me help you. Let's figure out how we can, show me the money. Let's figure out how we can start showing the value of what we do, and really even the risk associated with them of saying no, this couldn't get funded. So when that does fail, guess what? It costs us twice as much to get it fixed because I had to react, and we had this downtime and this impact. Those are all negatives. Those are those crises that we talked about earlier. How do I use those to say, we cannot keep doing this? And help you and work with your management to gather that information so that we can continue to justify.
And when explaining that, like, paint the most vivid picture that you can for them so they can see it. They're not us, so they're not going to see what we see. We have to talk in their language, and that's a very large part of it, of like being able to speak every language that there is within the organization that you have. Like, you have to talk with the CEOs. You have to talk with the communications folks. You have to talk with so-and-so. Being able to, I guess, code switch it in that way is very, very beneficial for us, especially when it comes to a financial type of deal. Like, we have to be able to go into their brain so that they can understand what we're talking about.
So one more thing I wanted to add into is kind of follow me down. I'm going to go to you next as well. Follow me down this rabbit hole a little bit. And I really appreciate your question, and I want to do a little bit more with it, because again, I just talked to this hospital about some of this stuff, and it's very top of mind, so if you can follow me on it. But I also want to re-highlight something as well. You got us here, you got John, you got Clarence, you got Charles, and you also got each other as well here at the conference, which is the whole point that Dan and the team puts all this on. So if you could say your name also real quick. Colin. All right, so everyone now knows Colin too. And that Colin now, as a person who also we've learned, advocate, and figure out the ways in which to highlight things that are going on. So now everyone can also go up to Colin as well and ask, hey, what are you doing today at your facility right now to helping you with this thing? What I was trying to allude to earlier when it came to the hospitals, specifically, when I asked this hospital the things they had going on and why weren't they highlighting these things, you know, in their newsletters and everything else from the facility side, from their community health needs assessment, it was energy efficiency and the use of renewables, energy benchmarking, putting energy back into the grid, providing a healthy building for occupants, community meeting spaces, healthy food options for guests and patients, waste reduction and recycling, team community employment, their teams community and the jobs they provide and employment, the focus on IAQ standards and so on. Those are all things that you can catch the attention of the advocates inside the hospital or whatever else as well and say, these are things that we're doing and we're doing well. These should be a part of what we report out to the community and to our board and so on as well. Let us be a part of that greatness we're amplifying, right? So I want to highlight that. Next, John's point of the FCA. What we pointed to earlier was the mission and the visioning of the department. The mission and the visioning of the department should be a branch of the mission and vision of your organization that you work with, right? So if theirs is, you know, every kid provides or is provided a sound education that amplifies education and puts them on the pathway to college. You say we use our facilities to provide safe, clean, and dry environments to make sure every student is safe and is in a safe environment or something like that, right? So you're taking their idea. So when your CEO talks about what you all are doing and why we're spending money this way, you say we're right in your swim lane. We're in that mission. We're doing this, conducting this effort as a part of that. And then the next downstream part of that is, oh yeah, we also did a facility condition assessment of the entire organization, their entire campus. And these are all the flaws and everything else. So if you want to live up to our creed that you had that we also bought into, I need some of this green. I need some of this money. And it needs to also come here to do this. Otherwise, you're not going to be able to meet your goal of doing this thing. And that's all a big part of it. The other part of it I wanted to make sure to bring up too was the money side of it. So in hospitals, infection control risk assessments as well, you can also do those too. And they typically find that if there's an infection risk, a case of infectious control failure, that's $20,000 to $40,000 per incident, easily, right? To try to get into that. Costs you all money real quick just for not doing a thing. So let's do the thing correctly. And that's Legionella and everything else as well. But I was also going to bring up this other thing too. Let's see if I can get to it. Most of you all, if you work, well, not most of you, if you work in the public side of it or government side of it or that like hospitals and everything else as well, schools, have to report out their 990s and everything to the public. So if you don't have access to it at your department, which you should and could and everything else, your financials internally, to get drilled down into this, you can definitely get it from your 990s that are publicly out there. And one of the things I remember I brought up to someone before was, according to the 2021 report, 40% of the funding that was given, 40% of the philanthropic funding was spent on equipment and facilities. And I talked about exactly how much it was. But that was, overall, that only came out to like 1.1% of spend on equipment. It's kind of convoluted, but essentially, they only spent like 1.1% of their funding on equipment and repair. 1.1%. So got all this money in, great funders were glad. We got 1.1%. What are we really going to do with that? We can't keep anything going. We definitely can't keep anything expanding and improving on like 1.1%. Using the information that you have as a communicating tool back to them in their own language. Funding, development, advancement of the agenda, whatever you want to call it. However you need to talk to them, find a way to talk to them and make it so.
So we had a question back there, yeah?
Oh, yeah.
So that's a good point. So facility condition and index, so total deferred maintenance divided by the replacement value. And then the lower the FCI, the better. So you tackle all those higher FCI. So that's the way to present it to the C-suite people, because they're about the numbers. Yep. If you present it with your FCI, the prerequisite for the FCI is your facility condition assessment. So, and also if you have a positive net present value, and then you have a good internal rate of return, then you have the money.
Yeah, I mean, the downside is that in facilities, and IRR, we're never going to win that battle. Because facilities, yes, it is a cost center. but it is the cost of us doing business. And I think that's where we, if we focus on we spend X amount of money, we can get this new chiller that's going to be more efficient and reduce reactive maintenance. Okay, great. We're not going to get the IRR or net present value. We're not going to win that battle more than likely, just even on getting something like that. What I'm going to show is, okay, how does that impact productivity? So that's where, okay, I'm going to see my hot and cold calls go down, which means I'm getting more productivity out of the occupants in that building. We're going to have less impacts, less downtime to the spaces in which that chiller serves in that case. So that's going to help. The other thing where FCI comes into play is because we are trying to show that return on investment, the FCI really is just a ratio, right? He gave you, it's the sum of deferred maintenance divided by the current replacement value of that facility. So if I have that FCI and I'm showing as I get money from the C-suite to put back into the buildings, as I go back each year, I'm showing them, look, the money you gave me, I put it to work, the FCIs have improved, right? I'm showing them that return on investment so they can see, yes, the dial is moving in the right direction. And that's another great, again, using that FCI as a communication tool, absolutely to the executives, include that each year.
If I could, and actually I'm going to ask you, John. I know I'm not the moderator on this, but I'm just going to ask. I think I'm pretty sure you have a great answer to this. In the plainest speak possible, thinking the fact that most of the C-suite people we're talking to did not go to school for construction management or engineering or facilities or architecture, anything like that at all. In the plainest speak possible, where you're trying to snag their ear, we know that the FCI number being high means this. How would you snag their ear that this is what's happening on this campus, this building, we have to act?
What I would use is, that's why you kind of use that Ugly Betty example. Sorry if anybody's name is Betty, so we can go Ugly Benny. So that's a dude's name, it's okay. What I would do is you can use those comparisons where they likely know which building they get calls about or people are complaining about. I can use that as my example because it likely has a pretty poor FCI of, look, we know that this is a problem child right here. I need to put money into this to make it better, or if I don't put money into these other ones, they're all going to end up like this one building. So they start to get that and understand. So again, it's just a matter of translating risk. That's really what they more focus on, is risk, and then of course impact to productivity.
Another big word I would say to add to that, so risk, productivity or impact, and embarrassment. If you can tie that FCA or the FCI for that facility to the complaints that are received by whoever, guests, patrons, building users, when you do your satisfaction surveys, which hopefully you all do to your staffs, and we always find out the facilities is usually the lowest rated, probably next to like the security or something like that in an organization. Do we want embarrassment? Oh yeah, that building that we get the worst reviews on as well. Oh yeah, remember that I ask for money for that all the time and we don't get it, and this is the FCA of it, and they're complaining about the exact same thing over and over and over again. Do we like embarrassment? Do we like being in the news? Do we want that to be reported out about us? No. So let's do this thing in this area, and maybe we can lower the temperature on that facility or that space, and our staff won't have as much turnover because they like working in that same space as well. And you define your tentacles, right? Now we're talking about human resources and hiring and the cost of hiring and loss of staff, satisfaction surveys, right? By not just guests, but also staff as well. If they're really taking this thing seriously, it can all be connected back, at least a part of it connected back to what is the environment they're working in, what is the environment of these spaces, what are the conditions, and you get to tell the story.
And use it, I would say, always try to be in the mindset of using those problems as your advantage. But like when the time comes for you to be about, when they're asking the questions, okay, so what do we need to do or everything, be ready for it and don't fumble that. We have to be ready for that. We're asking for this, we're not getting it, okay, at some point, if we do everything that we're saying up here to do, it's gonna come to that table, pick up the ball and go get it in the end zone.
Yeah.
So again, pipeline, organization's mission, statement, and vision, you crafting one as well, that tying to your FCA, and your FCA then driving the conversation of why we're bringing up these topics. It may seem like a nagging issue for whoever it is, but essentially That's why we're connecting it all. So you're pushing in.
Sadly, we are out of time already.
We got the 2 questions.
We're going to pour it as much into you all as possible.
Oops.
Thank you to our panel. Thank you, Charles, Clarence, and John, for joining us. I'm sure they'll be here for a couple minutes if you have any questions for them. Thank you very much.